Hey yo! Welcome everyone to my latest video. It has been a while since I've been on YouTube. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. A lot of stuff has happened in the world of professional wrestling and entertainment. I'm going to try and cover as much as I can in this video, but my personal life has been quite rambunctious lately. In my professional life, I'm going back to the office, not the same office I was going to before COVID, but I'm going to a office, which is... Thank God for that, because I'm going to feel a lot less cooped up, and so it'll be good to actually go outside and go back to work, as it were. And wedding planning is coming along. We've set a date and a venue, so we are all good to go. And September it seems like a long way off, but it also seems really close. It's like, man, it's like it'll be here before I know it. Oh man, it's crazy. But yeah, there's a lot to go over, so I figure let's start off with the bad news. Since the last time I did a video, we have lost a wrestling legend, one Scott Hall, one of the most influential figures in the history of professional wrestling, and a guy who added so much to both the WWF and WCW, one of the key components of WCW winning the Monday Night Wars for those key 83 weeks, the heralded 83 weeks where WCW was on top, and was a very important figure in making the NWO both cool and threatening, and making them feel like a legitimate threat that could take down the entire company. And I think Scott Hall added a lot to that. And I think the Razor Ramon character that he played for the WWF in the 90s was one of the coolest characters in the WWF at a time where they didn't have a whole lot of cool characters. I think if you look at all the gimmicky characters, the ones that were kind of like more outlandish, like Bret Hart, I guess you could say is a character, but that's really just him. Shawn Michaels, a bit exaggerated, but that was really just him. But Razor was like more of like a character, and could have, if he was poorly cast, as we saw with the fake Razor and fake Diesel, if the right guy was not in that role, it wasn't going to work, and could have easily come off as bad as any of the other many other failed gimmicks that happened during that time. But during that period, there were two characters that the WWF had that I really, really enjoyed. The Undertaker and Razor Ramon. And I thought Razor was just so effortlessly cool. And in the latest episode of Weekday Warriors of Wrestling, which I recorded with Eric earlier this week and posted over at the channel, be sure to like and subscribe over to that channel. The link will be in the description. And also send in your questions for question and answer videos. We're going to be doing a mailbag next week where we answer your questions. So be sure to send those to the email address weekdaywarriors2020@gmail.com. That will also be down in the description below. So go ahead and check that out. But in that episode, Eric made the point that Scott Hall, we think of Razor Ramon as like this awesome, larger-than-life character that was a cornerstone of the WWF. He was only with the company for 4 years. And he made that big of an impact in 4 years. And I think to today's wrestling, it's like, man, there are guys that are with the company 9, 10, 15 years, like the Dolph Zigglers and the Mizes and those type of guys. Sheamus has been there forever. And you're thinking, man, Razor feels like a much bigger star than all of them combined. And I'm not trying to put them down. I think it's just a difference of how the WWE is run now compared to how it was run back then, where they kind of let guys take control of their characters and push the guys that got over. And Razor got over strong, and there were legs to that character. And I thought Scott Hall was the perfect guy to play that part. He was great in the NWO. He was great as Razor Ramon. He was one of the best Intercontinental Champions of all time. The ladder match with Shawn Michaels is one of the most influential matches of all time. And you still see the fingerprints of that match in wrestling today. And I really can't sing enough praises for Scott. And I was really upset when I heard that he passed, especially after he'd worked so hard to clean up his life and get past his demons that had held him down so much, because there were some very rough patches there with Scott. I mean, they were well documented during his time in WCW. He was one of the victims. Well, I don't know if victim's the right word, but he was one of the ones that got cut loose after the plane ride from hell. And TNA, he had a couple of incidents where he no-showed events, the biggest one being Turning Point '07. So there were a lot of down points for Scott Hall. And, it seemed like in recent years that he turned his life around and everything was going well thanks to DDP Yoga and getting linked in with DDP and everything. And apparently, is my understanding that DDP was the one who found him. He fell down, broke his hip, and was left alone for a couple of days. And Paige was the one that found him when he did a wellness check. And then everything just kind of went wrong from there, unfortunately. It's just the sad thing is, if this had happened like 10 years ago, I don't think anybody would have been shocked. It would have still been sad, but none of us would have been shocked. But now it's like he, cleaned everything up. He went into the Hall of Fame, had one of the best Hall of Fame speeches of all time that, is immensely quotable, very memorable. And we lost him to some freak accident, like just freak medical thing that happened because of a hip surgery that led to a blood clot that led to 3 heart attacks. And it's a horrible, horrible situation. And as wrestling fans, we're used to losing our heroes, and it sucks, but it's one of those things it's just one of those things that wrestling fans have gotten used to. And but that doesn't make it any less sad, and it doesn't make it any more unfortunate. So my best wishes and my thoughts and prayers go with Scott Hall, his family and friends during what I'm sure is a very hard time. And as wrestling fans, I think we should focus on celebrating the career of Scott Hall and what he gave us as fans, because there's plenty to enjoy, definitely. And I'm speaking as somebody who just recently, within the last couple of years, rewatched all the old Nitros from like when he first got there and through the high points of the NWO. And man, those were good times. So yeah, thank you, bad guy Chico. You provided a lot to us wrestling fans. And the other thing that amazes me about Scott is that if you listen to him in shoot interviews, the dude is a genius. And, I talked about casting with the Razor Ramon character, but that never would have really happened because the Razor Ramon character was his idea. He watched Scarface and just got the idea to basically do that for a wrestling gimmick. And the Crow Sting gimmick was his idea because he saw the movie and pitched it. And they went with it. So it's like, man, movie night at Scott Hall's house must be amazing. And because he'll watch a movie and just come up with a gimmick. It's amazing. But you listen to him in interviews, the dude has an amazing mind for pro wrestling, and he could have easily transitioned into being a booker or something along those lines. And we even talk about like certain guys that were, best of all time that never won a world title. I think Scott Hall is definitely on that list. I think very much like Jake Roberts, we know why he never got a world title. It's because of his personal issues, but man, I mean, you want to talk about a guy who had the look, could talk, effortlessly cool, had that it factor that you can't teach. He just had it, that swagger and everything. Scott Hall was really, really something special, and it was really sad to hear the news, but we as wrestling fans, we have a lot to celebrate in regards to Scott Hall, and I will never, ever forget his contributions to professional wrestling. So thank you once again, Scott. You did great. All right, so in other shocking news that took place, Triple H announced his retirement from in-ring competition, or in-ring participation in pro wrestling due to a health scare that he had last year. But before I jump into all of that, because there's plenty to go over, lots of stuff that's happened since the last time I did a video. AEW had their last pay-per-view, and they've had 3 weeks of television since then. WrestleMania is right around the corner, and there have been plenty of things announced, and I'm going to actually do my WrestleMania preview now, as well as the other shows that are happening that weekend, ROH Supercard of Honor 5, and NXT, what is the name of this show? Stand and Deliver. Interesting. I have not watched NXT since the first episode of the relaunch, so I know virtually nothing, so this preview is not going to give you a whole heck of a lot, but I'm going to head and do it anyway. But before I get into Triple H and AEW and WrestleMania and all that fun stuff, couple of updates on my end as far as the channel goes. I have a couple of videos lined up. I finally started working on the Batman videos, the Batman the Animated Series videos. I also saw the movie The Batman, which I'll do a review of here in this video. This is going to be a long one, guys, so hopefully, hope you're ready for the long road to hoe here. But the Batman the Animated Series videos, I should have the first video up sometime in April. I started working on it today, so hopefully you all enjoy that when that ultimately comes around. And because I'm looking forward to doing that series. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I also have a special WrestleMania video lined up for next week. And also, the next video you will see from me, though, is my first review of the 2000 WWE pay-per-views. I've been talking about this one for a long, long time. I'm up to, as far as my viewing of them, I'm up to SummerSlam. But for my first video, I think I'm going to do the first three, which would cover WrestleMania 2000. So it's appropriate, week of WrestleMania, you get a WrestleMania in there. So, yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So plenty of stuff will be going on this channel, even though I'm no longer posting in my full-time schedule. I'm still going to get content out to you guys. So that should be a lot of fun. And other updates, the book, my Godzilla book, the Godzilla Fight Record. Couple of updates. One, the book is currently in the hands of an editor, and we are working on getting it ready for publication. Now, I am not currently working with a publisher. And right now I'm focusing on editing and getting the manuscript as good as it possibly can be. I may have talked about this last time. I don't fully remember, but the book is going to be split into 2 volumes. Right now we are working on volume 1, which is going to cover the entirety of the Showa period. So if you're familiar, if you're a Godzilla fan who's initiated, you know exactly what that means. If you are not a fan, the Showa period is the original Godzilla series, which began in 1954 with the original film and ended with Terror of Mechagodzilla in 1975. So basically it's the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And it covers the original 15 Godzilla films as well as Toho giant monster movies that connect to Godzilla. So that would include like Rodan, Mothra, War of the Gargantuas, which is a huge one, King Kong Escapes, films like that. And so it'll be a fully encompassing record of Godzilla and all of his monster co-stars, and with Volume 1 covering the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then Volume 2 will, when I eventually get that one underway, which it's written, it's just once Volume 1 is finished, I have to go through the whole process, get it edited, get it ready for a publisher, get a book cover, and do all that fun stuff for Volume 2. But that one will cover the 80s, 90s, and everything beyond into the new millennium. With the Millennium series, the Monsterverse, Shin Godzilla, and the anime trilogy, and all that fun stuff. So that's where we are right now. Self-publication is still an option that's on the table. I'm highly considering it just to cut some of the hassle. But regardless of what route I ultimately take with publishing, I'm going to have to do some promotion for the book on my own, which means I will be rejoining Twitter. I'm not happy about it, not thrilled about it, but gonna rejoin the social medias after over a year of being off of it and being relatively peaceful. But I will be back on Twitter. I have not created a new account yet, and I have not, decided exactly how much of the Twitter account is going to be dedicated to the book and how much of it is going to be dedicated to other things. I don't know yet. Those are things I'm still trying to figure out and deciding like what's my time like. You probably won't see me do live tweeting of, say, a pay-per-view like I used to do or anything like that, but I can see myself using the Twitter to promote the book, but also using Twitter to kind of give my thoughts on a movie or a wrestling pay-per-view or something, things like that. So I will be back on the Twitter, so be on the lookout for that. Again, I'm not overly thrilled with it, but hey, what are you going to do? And so that's that. Also, Weekday Warriors of Wrestling, I mentioned that we recently recorded, Eric and I, we recently recorded our latest episode, so be sure to check that out. And currently we don't have a day set yet because our schedules are so hectic, but we want to record an episode next week as a preview lead into WrestleMania. And lately, with our videos, we've actually been doing WrestleMania rewinds where we go back and talk about previous WrestleMania events, and that's always fun to do. So that's all the stuff that's going on my end. Kind of hectic, kind of crazy, but you're going to be seeing a little bit more of me in other capacities. But man, going back to Twitter, man, it's kind of like Godfather 3. Once I was out, I thought I was out, they dragged me back in. But yeah, I'm real excited about the direction of the book. The editor I'm currently working with, she is very, very good, and I've been very happy with. I was very happy with her initial edits, and so far the work has been great. I can say, although there's no definitive timeline on when the first book will be out, I can give you an estimate. It's going to be, the editing process is going to take a few more months, definitely a few more months. And I'm anticipating Volume 1 to be, again, it also depends on like working with a publisher and how that goes along. But if I ultimately go the self-publication route, it'll wind up digitally published on Amazon, and it'll be that. In that case, if that is ultimately the route I decide to go, it'll be up by the end of the year. Easy peasy. But again, that's something that I've got to figure out over the course of the next few months. But right now I'm focusing on editing and getting it, prettying it up and getting it ready for, to shop to publishers and things like that. So, but right now I'm very happy with the direction of the book, and it's very exciting. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to be a published author by the end of this. That's so crazy. It's so crazy. But what more do we have? On the wrestling side of things, I already mentioned that Triple H retired. That was announced earlier today. I'm filming this Friday night. I'm actually missing Rampage right now as I film this, but hey, what are you going to do? The Hook Show. I mean, that show, Rampage is basically the Hook Show at this point, right? Like, the only reason anybody watches Rampage is for Hook. I feel like that's the case. But anyway. So Triple H retired. Not shocking news, because they were very hush-hush about what his medical issue was. They said it was a cardiac event. Triple H went into a little bit more detail with it earlier today when he gave his announcement in that interview. And sounded very bad, so I completely respect his decision to not step in the ring again. And as it is, Triple H had one of the longest and most successful careers of all time. That can't be denied. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I loved every single thing that Triple H did. That is definitely not the case. If you've ever seen any of my WrestleMania videos, you know I've been very critical of some of Triple H's stuff. But when he's good, Triple H is very, very good. Rewatching those old pay-per-views from 2000 is like, man, there was that window when he was legitimately the best wrestler in the world. And that was definitely his time. It's ironic because his theme song back then was My Time. It's like, that was definitely his time. He was the best. And he's had other runs where he was very, 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 very good. But then he's had other runs where it's like, why are you on my TV? Please go away. It's a lot of ups and downs with Triple H. But generally, overall, more on the positive side of things. I think, much like I said about Scott Hall, he had definitely had his influences. When you look at D-Generation X and his heel run in 2000 and the stuff he did that did work, like his feud with Undertaker and his... the match at WrestleMania 20 that we're not supposed to remember anymore, unfortunately, and, putting over Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30, those type of things. Those are things that, creating Batista, if there's a star that Triple H helped create, it was definitely Batista. So there's definitely some major high points in Triple H's career, and I think it's worth calling out. So, congratulations to Triple H on a long and successful career, and I wish you good health and get yourself taken care of, and enjoy not having to be in the ring anymore, because it's like you've put your time in, man. So I feel like enjoy your retirement, relax, and just enjoy the ride. Enjoy your wonderful life with your wife and kids, and that's where it's. Settling down is not a bad thing. I actually look forward to it myself, honestly. So that was Triple H. And before I get into the WrestleMania weekend stuff, I want to talk about some stuff that's been going on in the last couple of weeks, mainly with AEW and their latest pay-per-view Revolution, which I'm not going to go match by match and review the whole thing, because it's been 3 weeks since the pay-per-view, and me doing that would just be absurd. What I will say is that overall, I really liked the show. But there were two major problems. One, it was too long. Once again, it was too long. And the ordering of the matches was very suspect, because they had the dog collar match come on at not quite the halfway point, but close to the halfway point. And it really took the wind out of the sails of everything that came after it, because Punk and MJF Best match on the show. It was great. It was wonderful. It was a perfect payoff to the story. Wardlow came off looking like a star. And I look forward to seeing what they do with him, although, I'll talk about that in a minute. But that match was so good. It took, like I said, it took the wind out of the sails of everything that came after. So you had this overly long women's title match that nobody cared about. You had Bryan and Moxley both busting each other open after I just watched a total bloodbath between Punk and MJF. So it really undercut that. Yes, it was cool to see William Regal, and I like having him on AEW television. I think he's already contributing in a meaningful way. But it's like the ordering of the matches. I think the dog collar match should have main evented, quite honestly. That's my feeling. But in addition to certain matches could have been shortened. Like Britt and Thunder Rosa did not need to be that long. It did not need to be 20 minutes, especially since I felt the match was under-promoted and they were going to do this cage match anyway, which the cage match was overall pretty good. Not as good as their unsanctioned match, but an acceptable end to Britt Baker's reign, I felt. But Thunder Rosa was not going to lose the title at the pay-per-view because the match wasn't as promoted as well as it could have been. It's like, all right, just do the outside interference bit and get out of there in 10 minutes. It didn't need to be 20. And Moxley and Danielson did not need to be over 20 minutes. And maybe you could have shaved a few minutes off of Punk and MJF and things like that. Map things out a little bit better. And I'll also say, if you're going to go into the 4 or 5 hour pay-per-view time frame, if that's what you're going for the love of God, could you please have an intermission or something so I can at least take a break? Because if you don't, I'm ultimately going to use certain matches as piss breaks, like the women's title match, which is like, you made me use a Britt Baker match as a piss break, because it was just, I was spent, I was done. And, this whole idea that every match needs to be the best match on the show is just, it's not a sustainable format, because you just burn everybody out. And it's like, I think back to some of the shows I watched when I was a kid, and SummerSlam 91 had a great example of this, where around the midpoint of the show, they did a long string of promos, reactions from the winners and losers from earlier in the night. And you got some more of the Mountie going to jail. So it's like, all right, you get some character development continuing, some story continuing, but I'm not missing any action. So if I'd gone to the bathroom, I wouldn't have missed any action. But because I didn't go to the bathroom, I actually got to see all these great promos and the more Mountie stuff and all that other things. So that was a good way to kind of give an intermission without actually giving an intermission, and kind of giving people a break from the action, a chance to kind of catch their breath, stretch their legs, and do whatever they, even baseball has the 7th inning stretch. They have it for a reason, serves a purpose. And wrestling, it's like, they just want to do every match as half an hour long, and every match just goes on forever, and every match tries to be the best match on the show. It's like, guys, you can scale it back. You don't need to do that. It's funny, all that talk, it's like the second best match on the show was Kingston and Jericho, and it was the first match, So, yeah, I think, again, Revolution overall I thought was very good. Everything from Jericho and Kingston to Punk and MJF was generally a pretty good pay-per-view, all in all, with a great main event. And then everything that came after the dog collar match just kind of felt like bonus matches on the Coliseum videotape or something. It was just not important, and I didn't care. So, as for the stuff that AEW has done following Revolution, they've had some of their better shows, and the Jericho Appreciation Society, I guess I would have been more excited for it if AEW didn't already have 14 stables. Off the top of my head, they've got Jericho Appreciation Society, they've got the Pinnacle, they've got the Elite and Adam Cole's, the Undisputed Elite or whatever you want to call them. You've got the Dark Order, you've got the House of Black, and that's 6 right there. We got Britt Baker's little group, that's 7. Death Triangle, that's 8. So yeah, they got a lot of stables, a lot. So it was hard to get super excited about Jericho forming this new group, but I think so far they've some of the promos have been really good. Using the sports entertainment angle is kind of funny, and Jericho had great success elevating Sammy Guevara with the Inner Circle. So maybe it's because somebody in AEW really likes Daniel Garcia and 2.0. So maybe Jericho can rub a little bit of that magic dust onto them and help get them over. And we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. So I look forward to a match between Jericho and his new guys against Kingston and Santana and Ortiz. I think that'll be interesting. Kingston honestly cut some of the best promos in wrestling today, and he's probably the best mic worker in AEW, a company that includes MJF and CM Punk, so that says a lot. So, if nothing else, Kingston and Jericho will have some great back and forth with each other, I think. And as for everything else that's going on, like I said, Thunder Rosa won the women's title. She's going to be feuding with Nyla Rose. My understanding that's where they're going with this. And it's like, that's all right, I guess. I wonder what Britt's going to do. That's kind of what I'm wondering, is like, what's Britt going to do? Like, how's she going to respond to the loss and losing the title? I want to see where she ends up. The Wardlow situation is intriguing because it's like he's poised to become like a major star now. Now, the TNT title match with Scorpio Sky was a major misstep, I felt. And I know they don't want to go the WCW route of having every other match end in a no contest or a draw or count out DQ, whatever. But it's like, every once in a while, it's okay. And it's like, look, you don't want to take the belt off of Sky, but Wardlow shouldn't be getting beat because he's big as fuck and he's a gargantuan man. He shouldn't be getting beat. That would have been a perfect way to do a disqualification finish. Perfect match for it. Instead, they just had Wardlow get beat. And it's like, that kind of cuts into the monster thing a little bit. But that said, I think the storyline with MJF has potential to be very, very good, and I'm excited to see where that goes. I think Wardlow has been a project that is paying off wonderfully. I thought his moment where he turned on MJF at the pay-per-view was perfectly handled, and I think he has developed leaps and bounds beyond what I think anybody expected him to, and he's getting over. And I want to see him powerbomb that little shit into oblivion. And that's the magic of wrestling. You set up a heel, you set up a good guy, and you want to see the good guy beat up the bad guy. And this is what they've got right now with MJF and Wardlow with the great... it's basically DiBiase and Virgil if Virgil was like twice DiBiase's size. So it's got that extra component on it. It's like he's bullying a guy that could literally kill him. So it's a very appealing feud, and I look forward to seeing where it all goes. But right now, like AEW, I think the shows have been generally pretty good. We've got the Hardy Boys back, which is fun. I don't know. I feel like I've seen 19 Hardy Boy reunions, so it's hard for me to get too excited about it. But the match they had on Dynamite this week was fun. Like, Sting is insane. Like, Sting's crazy, the things he does at his age. And Jeff Hardy is like, if he doesn't jump off of something tall, he's just, his day is incomplete. He has to do a swanton bomb off of a ledge or a ladder or something. If he doesn't do it, like, he's he feels like he's, it's like not eating breakfast. He's got to do it. And but that's interesting. It's like, all right, maybe hopefully this is like the last run for the Hardy Boys. The tag division has some interesting possibilities because I'll be honest, I'm really digging this Moxley and Danielson tag team with William Regal as their kind of coach or manager or whatever, mouthpiece. I think so far they're basically just killing bitches, and I'm really digging it. And it's like, man, this could be something really cool. For the match they had at the pay-per-view was kind of so-so, and then since then the TV they've had and the interactions with Regal and the squash matches they've had, I think they've done really, really well. And it's like, man, we could possibly see. It's like, man, we've got Bucks and Red Dragon, we've got FTR, we've got Moxley and Danielson, we've got Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus as the champions. A lot of possibilities there going on in the tag team division. You know me, I love a good tag division, so I'm for a makeshift thrown together tag team, I'm really digging Danielson and Moxley. I think there's something good there. And now that we have all the AEW talk out of the way, let's talk about the other wrestling company that Tony Khan owns, ROH, which will be running its WrestleMania weekend show, Supercard of Honor 15. I have the card pulled up right here. Literally the only thing I know is that we're getting FTR versus the Briscoes, which I do want to see. And I was like, all right, is that enough to sell me on the entire show? Maybe. I mean, that's an exciting tag match to have. But let's look at the rest of this card as it stands now. We have 5 matches. We have the aforementioned, what I feel is the main event. If it's not the main event, they're fools. FTR taking on the Briscoe brothers with the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship on the line. So that's going to be the draw for the show, I guess. What's getting people like me excited. All right, we've got for the ROH Pure Championship, Josh Woods versus Wheeler Yuta. Singles match, Jay Lethal versus Lee Moriarty. Is that a dark match? Like, that's when I say dark, I mean AEW dark. This looks like an AEW dark card. Isaiah Swerve Strickland versus Alex Zane. I have no idea who that is. And for a winner takes all match to determine the undisputed Ring of Honor World Champion, Jonathan Gresham versus Bandito. Wow, that card's pathetic. Wow, that's a really bad card. Except for the tag match, that's a really, like, who gives a shit card. I completely forgot that Jonathan Gresham was the Ring of Honor World Champion. And I don't know how Bandito fits into there. Was he, like, the champion or something? I wasn't watching Ring of Honor towards the end, so. Wow, that's a... Okay, is the tag title match worth that card? I'm not sure. Not worth that price tag. Because at least the NXT show, I'm looking over at that card too, and it's like, that one, it's like going to be on Peacock, so it's not, I already have that, so it's not really a major pull for me, but it's, man, do I want to order a Ring of Honor pay-per-view for one match? I'm not sure. Really not sure, but I don't know. I'm probably going to check it out anyway, because it's WrestleMania season and it's Christmas for wrestling nerds, so might as well. All right, now we have the WrestleMania weekend NXT show, which will be happening April 2nd. So that's going to be the day of WrestleMania Part 1, right? If I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I guess this will be like WrestleMania's pre-show or something. I don't know. And again, as I said earlier, I have not watched any NXT 2.0 since the first episode of the relaunch. It's just not interesting to me. I do know about Walter's name change. I do know that Dolph Ziggler is the champion. I know like everybody's obsessed with this Nikki Lyons girl or whatever her name is because her ass is amazing. I've seen the pictures. I can confirm. But I've seen nothing coming out of this brand that makes me want to check them out. And that's no knock on Ziggler. I like Ziggler as a talent, but he's also a guy that's floundered for most of his WWE career because they just never seem to know what to do with him. So this feels like a consolation prize more than anything, and a demotion more than anything else. But let's take a look at this card. All right, we've got LA Knight, the former, what was his name? Eli Drake. Yeah, the former Eli Drake, LA Knight, taking on the former Walter, now known as Gunther. Who is naming these people? I swear to God. And yes, I'm fully aware of the Pete Dunne thing where he's Butch. And it's like, who is naming these fucking people? It's unbelievable. I mean, at least AEW, all their stupid names are for the jobbers on Dark. I mean, fuck. This is insane. Because the name Walter has a classier feel to it while also sounding a little intimidating. Gunther just sounds like a really bad attempt to sound intimidating. It's really, whatever, it's stupid. Then we have Tommaso Ciampa versus Tony D'Angelo. I have no idea who that is. I have no idea who Tony D'Angelo is, all right? And we have a triple threat tag team match for the NXT Tag Team Championship. Imperium defending against the Creed brothers. I do not know who they are. And MSK, Nash Carter, and Wesley. I do not know who they are. I don't know who these people are. It's like, oh my God. Man, there was a point in time where I was like, NXT was my jam, and now I'm looking at this like I don't know you. I don't know you. It's like seeing an aunt that I haven't seen since I was 5, and then she says hello to me at 35, and I'm like, I don't recognize you at all. I feel a connection there because we're related, but I don't recognize you because I haven't seen you in forever. For the women's champion, the NXT Women's Championship, there's a fatal 4-way match. Mandy Rose is on NXT now? Okay. Cora Jade, I have no idea who that is. Io Shirai, she's still on NXT. And Kaylee Ray. And that's your women's title match. Like, all right. And then there's a fatal 5-way ladder match for the NXT North American Championship. Carmelo Hayes, the title holder. I don't know who that is. Santos Escobar, I know him. Solo Sikoa? Who are these people? Wait, is that? No. Solo Sikoa. Okay, I'm clicking on his Wikipedia link and it goes to a link of Rikishi. That can't be right. That can't be right. Oh, it's his son. Okay. Okay, it's a relative of his, apparently. Okay, yeah, it's his son. Okay. I was like, why is it going to a link for Rikishi of all things? But okay, anyway. Grayson Waller, I don't know who that is. Cameron Grimes, I know who that is. A-Kid, his name is A-Kid. Who is naming these people? God. Or wait, what is this? Okay, so Cameron Grimes or A-Kid or Roderick Strong. So I'm assuming there's some kind of a triple threat match to determine who gets the final spot. Okay. Fair enough. I'm sure they will dive off of ladders the entire time. And then the main event for the NXT Championship, it'll be Dolph Ziggler defending against the guy that should be named Rex Steiner, but is instead named Braun Breaker because why the hell not? Oh my God. There was a point in time where I would miss out on hanging out with people to see an NXT TakeOver show because their shows were that good. And now it's like, you can't even pay me to watch that. Oh my God, what happened to you, NXT? What happened? Anyway, let's go into WrestleMania, which I'm sure will be the better show. Even with its problems, I'm certain that WrestleMania will be a more interesting show than that. It's got to be, right? All right, well, I guess I'll talk about the Hall of Fame class. That's interesting. Gonna pull it up. All right, so far we have only 4. The Warrior Award's going to the late Shad Gaspard, who died a few years ago. Actually, 2 years ago. So he's getting the Warrior Award. Queen Sharmell is going in. I don't know if I would have picked her. Are they running out of women to put in there? I don't know. Vader absolutely belongs in there. And Undertaker is going. Honestly, I thought they were just going to put Undertaker in by himself because there's ever an opportunity to do that, it's Undertaker, I feel like. All right, so that's the Hall of Fame class. Now let's look at the card, which is once again split into 2 nights, which I much prefer that over having a 9-hour show. So it's like, all right, I can. It's more digestible if it's in 3-hour chunks. Rather than, the last time they did it all in one night, it was ungodly long. So, no more of that, please. So for night 1, we are having Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio versus The Miz and Logan Paul. I do not care about Logan Paul at all whatsoever. He's just a YouTube guy. Granted, I'm just a YouTube guy, but yeah, I don't care. Drew McIntyre, former WrestleMania main eventer Drew McIntyre, taking on Happy Corbin, how many times has Corbin been repackaged? I feel like it's been like 2 or 3. And he hasn't been around that long. Anyways, we've got a tag team title match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Usos will be defending against Shinsuke Nakamura and that Rick Boogs guy that I saw at the Royal Rumble. Yeah, okay. Then for both women's title matches are going to be on night 1. That's interesting. Becky Lynch will be defending against Bianca Belair in a rematch from the squash match that they did when Becky made her return. I would imagine that Bianca would win just to get her win back. And we're doing Charlotte Flair defending the SmackDown Women's title against Ronda Rousey. I personally feel like, once again, I said it at 35, and I'll say it here, it should have been Becky and Ronda one-on-one. That's my take. I think it's the bigger match. I think it's the more interesting match. I think Charlotte, I don't know. I don't think she's as, but then again, I don't know what Becky Lynch is doing these days. She might have like fallen off a cliff and be nowhere near as interesting as she used to be. So I have no idea. I haven't been watching WWE. It's so much fun previewing shows based on weekly programming that you don't watch. But the most interesting match on night one, at least the ones that are listed here, is Edge versus AJ Styles. That's one of those like interesting pairings that you never really think about, but you put them together. It's like, yeah, this should be a pretty good match. I was like, all right, let's see what they can do. That one's got me intrigued. But I think the main talking point the main selling point of night one will be the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin, as he will be a guest on the KO show. And there's speculation that Austin is going to get extremely physical in this thing. May even turn into a legitimate match. We don't know. A lot of question marks surrounding it. When I did my last video talking about the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin, I did so under the impression that Austin was going to wrestle at WrestleMania. So I don't know exactly what he's going to do. If he comes down, jaw jacks for a little bit, and just hits the stunner on Owens, it'll be the biggest waste of time ever, because I've seen Austin do that a million times. But if they can actually get him to do something physical and actually have a legit, well, not legit, but like actually have him do something more than just drinking beer and doing a stunner, I think that will be pretty exciting. So I'm intrigued to see what they do there. To say the least. And that's really my main motivation to check out night one. All right. Then we have night two, which this match is not listed yet because it's still up in the air, but it's pretty much all but confirmed that Seth Rollins will be wrestling one Cody Rhodes. Cody, why did you decide to go back? Again, I want to know exactly what happened in AEW that led to him leaving, because it's just strange, right? Like a lot of what Cody was doing in AEW and his like status with the company and everything, a lot of that was extremely strange. And it's just so weird to see him going back after everything that went down the way it did. It's really, really weird.
Look, Pim, I know it's our job to help this guy and everything, but I think this guy's a lost cause. He's obviously made up his mind. Why don't we just cut our losses and get out of here?
Moving right along from there, we have the a fatal four-way for the women's tag team championship. Those titles still exist. Yeah. Is the 24/7 title still around? I can't imagine they're still trying to milk that cow. But anyway, it'll be Queen Zelina and Carmella defending the titles against Sasha Banks and Naomi, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, and Natalya and Shayna Baszler. These are just random-ass teams that they threw together. Like, what the ever-living fuck? Anyway, then we have an Anything Goes match. Johnny Knoxville taking on Sami Zayn. I don't care. Pat McAfee taking on Austin Theory. I don't care. Triple threat match for the Raw Tag Team Championship would be RK Bro defending against the Street Profits and Alpha Academy. That's actually one of the better looking undercard matches on this show, because it actually it involves RK Bro. Again, for a guy who hasn't been watching, I know that RK Bro is over. Because people talk about them and they're legitimately entertaining and exciting people. So it's like there must be something there. And I've seen a little bit of their stuff, and it seems like Randy Orton is excited about it. And Orton's a guy, I've been saying it for the 20 years that he's been with the company. It's like when Orton is on, he is really, really good. When Orton doesn't give a shit, it is obvious as hell, and it takes away from the show. But yeah, I would imagine RK Bro would retain here. It's just the Alpha Academy thing is funny because it's I remember American Alpha, that team that Chad Gable was a part of, and they were so good in NXT. And Otis was a part of Heavy Machinery, which was another tag team that in NXT didn't really get their full didn't really get their full due, but they were a nice little bruiser tag team. And now it's like they're both without their partners, so it's like, the two lost souls of NXT just finding each other and forming a tag team. So it's, whatever. And then we have the main event, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. Both championships, WWE and Universal, are on the line, so it's a winner-takes-all situation. They are not unifying the belts, which I think they should, because having two world titles is ridiculous. But Oh, is it a unification match? I don't know. It says unify here, so I don't know if that means they're going to be permanently merged. We'll see. But this is the third time that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, and yes, they are going to close out night 2 because you look at that card. There's nothing else that's going to close. They're not closing with Johnny Knoxville. This is the third time that these two have closed out WrestleMania. And the first time they did it, the fans rejected Roman so harshly that they had to book the match basically as Lesnar squashing him, and then Seth Rollins doing the Money in the Bank cash-in to kind of get out of there, protect Brock, but also not put the belt on Roman because they knew the fans were rejecting him. That was their best one. Then they had the match at 34, which the fans just completely, wholeheartedly rejected. Top to bottom, bell to bell, just completely rejected the main event, more vehemently than any other main event in WrestleMania history. They were very vocal in their disapproval of the match. And here they are again, third time's a charm, I guess. I mean, the first one was good for what it was, but it was booked the way it was to kind of get out of a bad situation. Here it's like, it feels like a legitimately good situation this time around, and Lesnar's the face, Heyman's betrayed him and is working with Roman Reigns. And now you'll get one Ultimate Champion between the two of them, and it seems like this will be Roman finally beating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, much like how The Rock finally beat Austin at WrestleMania 19. So we will see how that goes. But as far as the WrestleMania encounters between the two of them, this is the most interested I've been. Again, speaking as someone who's not watching TV week to week, I just, you see clips and you hear things here and there. It's like on paper, it's the most interesting that this pairing has ever been. So I'll take what I can get. So that is WrestleMania. That is a not great 2-night card. See, I'm looking at this card, and you could probably do this card all in one night, because these, for the love of God, most of these matches aren't going like 15, 30 minutes, right? Like, I would imagine the Johnny Knoxville match would be pretty short. I imagine the Pat McAfee match is going to be pretty short. I would imagine, maybe Edge and AJ will go long. Yeah, maybe. It seems like most of the long matches are going to be in night 1. And in night 2, like Lesnar or Reigns, like Lesnar almost never goes too long. So I don't know. Like I look at that card and I feel like you could do that whole thing in one night. But then again, we still got another week. Cody and Seth is not even listed on the official card yet. So, yeah, so they could add a bunch to it next week. We'll see. But right now I'm looking at it, it's like, that looks a little thin for a 2-night card, but okay. So that's enough of the wrestling talk, I think. Let's get into actual, like, entertainment. And I talked a little bit about Godzilla earlier and my book, The Godzilla Monster Fight Record, which is going to detail all the wins and losses for Godzilla and all of his co-stars. Well, it appears I may have some work to do on Volume 2 because it broke earlier this week that filming on a Godzilla vs. Kong sequel will begin later this year. We don't know anything else other than that. We just know that they're going to be filming it. There's also talks that Toho is going to be filming their own Godzilla movies. There's talk of the Shin Shared Universe project or whatever that is that's going to mix like Godzilla, Evangelion, Ultraman, and Kamen Rider, which is like, Jesus Christ. That's Japanese pop culture in a nutshell right there, at least the tokusatsu side of things. You work Super Sentai in there and Gamera, you're pretty much all set. But I mean, it's almost hard to comment on it right now because we don't really know much. And there's also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's an animated Monster vs. Kong show coming to Netflix, and there's a Godzilla Monsterverse show coming to Apple Plus. So, I mean, we still don't even know exactly what those are going to entail yet. And it's really hard to say. My fear is, because the movie's being described as Godzilla vs. Kong 2, and that's how it's being described. So right off the bat, my fear is that it's going to be Godzilla and Kong fighting each other again, and then they have to team up to fight a greater threat, likely like Destroyer or Gigan, or maybe even Mecha King Ghidorah, since Mecha King Ghidorah was kind of set up in the last movie. And they'll have to do that again. And it's like, I hope they don't just follow the same formula. Because one thing about the MonsterVerse that I've enjoyed is that each film has been different, and each film is kind of had its own identity, and they're all fun in their own ways. I mean, my idea, it's like, all right, you've done Godzilla and Kong, they're partners now. They've got to team up and be the alpha Titan duo and go around fighting all the bad monsters. So I'm hoping that they don't just do a complete rehash of Godzilla versus Kong 1 and actually let it have its own identity, because it's like, what can you do in another Godzilla versus Kong movie set in the same continuity? What, have Kong win at the end? That's really all you can do. Is like have Kong beat Godzilla. But I don't know. We'll see. But it's fairly fresh news, and we don't know a whole lot about it. I just wanted to let everyone know that it is definitely on my radar, and I am paying attention to it. So we'll know more as details come out. So moving right along from there, saw a movie. Saw the new Batman movie on my birthday. That was so last Sunday. I didn't see it right when it came out because I knew it was like, look, my birthday's going to be on a Sunday. And I talked to my fiance about it. I was like, look, I don't want to do anything crazy. I just want to sit around, relax, watch TV, and then go see Batman. That's all I want to do. And it was a great birthday. It was a great birthday as a result. Now, I'm a big Batman fan, obviously, so I was very... I'm going to see a Batman movie regardless because I am just that big a fan of the character, but I'll be completely honest here. Superhero movies have kind of worn thin with me. I've become increasingly sick of it because it feels like there's 40 of these things a year. And it's getting harder and harder for me to get excited about the next Marvel movie or even the next DC movie. It's like, they screw up most of the time anyway, but it's hard for me to get that level of excitement up for a superhero movie again, because it's just even if they were all good, it's still like there's so many of them that it's hard for me to get like any kind of anticipation for these things anymore. And Batman, I've seen so many Batman movies that it's hard, even with Batman, it feels like, I've seen it, but the thing that kept me interested in this movie was the fact that Matt Reeves was the director, and he was involved in the Planet of the Apes trilogy, some of my more favorite movies in the last decade or so. So I was like, all right, I want to see what this guy can do with Batman. Let's see what he does. And I'm happy to report that overall, I generally enjoyed the movie. If I had to assign a letter grade, I would give it a B+. What is wrong with it? What kept it from getting an A? The movie's way too long. That's been the top criticism from people I've talked to. The movie's almost 3 hours long. It's way, 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 way too long. You could have cut some time out. Couple of other things. There's a few wonky moments in the film. Like there's one moment with Batman and a bomb that makes Batman look stupid. I was like, what are you doing, Batman? You're smarter than that. He's so competent for most of the movie, then that happened. It's like, dude, what happened there? Where'd your brain go? Where'd your brain go, man? There's trying to think of other things. I like Andy Serkis as an actor, and he probably got the part as Alfred because of his work on the Planet of the Apes movies and working with this director, and he did an amazing job in those movies. But I didn't really feel much of a connection between Alfred and Bruce this time around, and I don't know. I didn't really feel Andy Serkis as Alfred. It's just something, I have a preconceived notion of Alfred being this kindly old man, kind of like he is in the animated series, and it's hard for me whenever they try to deviate from that. I kind of get like, I don't know, not really my cup of tea. But other than that, I thought the movie was pretty good stylistically. They did a lot of things to make Gotham City look like a comic book come to life. They used darkness effectively very well to create some great visuals, especially with Batman, who's kind of like this Michael Myers style superhero where he's almost like a shadow that takes shape. It's almost like, especially in his opening scene, it's like the darkness kind of takes shape and he just kind of comes out of the darkness. It's hard to explain, but there's a lot of great visuals. Stylistically, it's a very nice looking film. And I also like that it's pretty much just a straight up detective story. It doesn't try to be a CGI laser pew pew fest or anything like that. It's a gritty, noirish detective story, like many of the best Batman stories. Two of my personal favorites are Hush and The Long Halloween, and I felt like this story definitely kind of falls in line with those type of Batman stories. And also, there's some clear influences from the movie Seven, which is a fantastic movie, and It's like, if you're going to base any superhero movie off of Seven, Batman's probably the one to go with. And generally, I like the cast. I thought Zoe Kravitz was really good as Catwoman. Not as good as Michelle Pfeiffer, but still pretty good. Better than Anne Hathaway, I would say. And I really liked Colin Farrell as Penguin. It's like he was almost unrecognizable under all the prosthetics and everything, and I thought he was great. And it was nice to see Penguin in a movie again, because he's an underrated Batman villain, I think. Maybe Gotham kind of brought Penguin back to the public conscience, that show, which I thought Gotham was a terrible show, but maybe it, like, because Penguin's played such an important role in it, maybe it, like, brought him back in the minds of people, so they decided to bring him back, which is, I'm completely fine with. I'm glad that Riddler is the main villain in this movie. It's different. It was nice to not have another Joker movie, at least right away. He does, Joker's going to be in the sequel. Let's put it that way. We know that for sure, but it was nice to get a break from the Joker and kind of take advantage of some of the other more famous Batman villains. So it was great having Riddler, great having Penguin, great having Catwoman and Batman going on this little caper together. There are a lot of moments in the movie that kind of feel like something out of an old Western, and I'm talking about the cast. Robert Pattinson as Batman. I got to be honest, I did not like him as Bruce Wayne. I kind of alluded to this earlier when I talked about Alfred, but I think as Bruce Wayne, he was kind of a bland, mopey-dopey type that, just kind of looked like a moody teenager the entire time, which I know that's how he got his start in Twilight. But Robert Pattinson's actually a really good actor. I've seen him in other things where he's really good, like The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe. If you're into for more of like an art house style drama, check that film out. It's really weird and fucked up and features some two bonkers performances from two actors. So, but he actually is a really good actor. I just did not feel him as Bruce Wayne. But fortunately, he is Batman for most of the movie. And I don't know if it's a case of the suit doing the acting for him, but when he's Batman, he's awesome. Like, I don't know what the disconnect there is, but man, when he's in the suit and he's going to work and they have that musical sting to accompany him, which sounds like the main Batman theme that they use whenever he enters or he's trying to intimidate someone, it's kind of sounds like the main theme of The Mandalorian, and The Undertaker's theme music had a baby. It sounds really, really great, and he feels like this walking monster that's been unleashed on the criminal element in Gotham. And every time he's on screen, I think he's really, really good. And he doesn't have the obnoxious, growly voice that Christian Bale had in the Nolan films. And the Batmobile, there's one big scene with the Batmobile that's amazing. And it's like, there's not a lot of action in this movie. Like I said, it's mostly focused on the mystery and the drama of solving the crime and that type of stuff. But the lone, like, really big action sequence was the Batmobile scene, which was really cool and really awesome and made the Batmobile look like a demon that was birthed from hell. And thankfully the Batmobile is a car again, and it's not a gigantic tank-looking thing from a science fiction film. Like some recent versions, like the Nolan version was the Tumbler, and then the DCEU versions, it looks like something out of a science fiction movie, and it's like, can we just have a car? Can it just be a juiced up car? It's the Batmobile. It's not, I don't know. It should reasonably drive on the street or a highway, right? Like, the Burton version will always be the best, but this one was pretty cool too. And overall, like, the Batman overall, pretty good. A couple of issues keep it from being a straight up like, oh my God, this movie's amazing type thing, but it's generally a pretty good movie. It looks great, and it's not, it doesn't feel like the Burton movie. It doesn't feel like the Nolan films. It feels like it's its own thing, which is the greatest compliment I can give it. It actually provided like a fresh approach to Batman that we haven't really seen in a big movie. This one felt like, more than any other Batman movie that's come out, at least live action Batman movie, this one really felt like one of the graphic novels come to life. And to that end, I say they succeeded. If that was their goal, they succeeded. Definitely. So Batman gets a thumbs up from me. Other stuff going on. Well, there's two shows that I've watched that I want to do reviews of. One of them will not surprise you at all. Season 2 of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe dropped on Netflix, I believe last week or the week before. And this is the kid-friendly version. So when they dropped Revelations last year, it was done under the with the news that there was going to be a second He-Man show that was going to be CGI and made more for kids and kind of an action adventure show for kids. And I and many other people completely hated Revelations. I hated it so much that I didn't even bother watching part 2 when it dropped. I was like, I'm tapping out. I'm not watching it. You're not getting my clicks. And it was actually, that was the show that broke me, where I was like, you are no longer entitled to my clicks. It's like, so if something is based on a previously existing IP that I care about, and I'll only watch it if it gets good word of mouth. It's like putting He-Man or Star Wars on something is not enough to get me to click on it. And that show really still, we're almost a year removed from it. It's still, I have such a sour taste in my mouth. But the good news is the CGI show, actually okay. That one was actually pretty solid. Again, it's more of a kid's show, but I think that's good. I think it's good to have like a show that's accessible for children to get into He-Man and Skeletor and all of their adventures together. And I generally enjoyed season 1. And so I watched season 2 because season 1 ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, and I checked out season 2 and follows suit, generally pretty solid. A few new characters are introduced. They worked in Manny Faces. They worked in Stratos and made him an obnoxious, cocky jerk who forms his own superhero team away from the Masters. Kind of reminded me of like the Mutanimals from Ninja Turtles, or like they're another subgroup of good guys that are working around. So that was kind of fun. I kind of enjoyed watching Stratos be a jerk, but yeah, it was generally pretty fun and a few more old school references for the fans to get, but also following its own path and doing its own thing. A couple of the things that drag it down are a couple of elements in the writing. Like there's a bit where He-Man won't tell Teela that the sorceress is missing. And when she finds out, it's played like this big betrayal on He-Man's part. And I'm just sitting there thinking, it's like, why didn't he just tell her? There's no reason. And they give an explanation, but it's a really weak one. It's like, okay, they just did this to have like a falling out or disagreement or whatever. And that part was really weak. But there are some fun episodes in there too. There's one where Skeletor spends his birthday with Man-at-Arms, and I'm like, that's kind of silly, but kind of fun too. They do an episode that I feel referenced The Witch and the Warrior from the classic series, where it's Evelyn and Teela stuck alone on an adventure to try and figure something out, and it features a giant fly that is voiced by Bobcat Goldthwait. There's a voice I did not expect to hear in 2022, but it's like, oh, Bobcat Goldthwait still gets work. That's pretty cool, actually. Good for him. There's also an episode where there's a train robbery, and Skeletor and He-Man are fighting over this piece of an ancient artifact that Skeletor can use to raise the ancient snake men. And they have to do this kind of goofy dance to get to it. And it's like, it's funny. Probably referencing the commercial featuring He-Man and Skeletor dancing with each other. But yeah, so it's fun, it's action-packed, and it's got plenty of like goofy fun moments to it. It feels like He-Man. It feels like He-Man Masters of the Universe. What really drags it down, though, is the final episode, which made absolutely no damn sense at all whatsoever. That, if anybody can explain that last episode to me, please do so, because it ends on another cliffhanger. Skeletor was killed in the previous episode, and it looks like, oh, the heroes have saved the day, they've saved Eternos, Adam's reunited with his father, and everything's all hunky-dory. But Skeletor's spirit exists, and he's torturing Ram Mam, and ultimately convinces her to help him, and she becomes one of the Dark Masters and gains the name Rampage and does a full-on heel turn. And you want to talk about something that feels completely unearned? That heel turn feels completely unearned. I saw it and I was like, why are they doing this? Why is she doing this? This feels stupid. And again, it's another example of like interjecting something in there to kind of drum up interest and force some drama in there where there doesn't need to be. It's like, I wish they'd done, if they're going to do this, I wish they'd done a lot more to build it up. But hey, even with that stupid final episode, it's still better than Revelations, because Revelations was bad in a way that was insulting. This show, it's like, the writing could be better, but at least it doesn't make me like wish I wasn't a He-Man fan. I'll give it that. So yeah, the final episode big head scratcher. But other than that, generally okay and fun. So if you enjoyed season 1, you'll probably enjoy season 2 as well. I know season 3 is coming later this year. Hopefully they wrap up that stupid that stupid cliffhanger, because that was really dumb. But other than that, the show's generally okay. And it's at least it's not insulting towards He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which is a low bar these days. But this show managed to rise above that bar, and I'll give it praise for that. So what else? Let's wrap up with one last show that I watched. And if you were watching my videos during the early days of COVID, you know, I started doing, like, I was looking for ways to fill the time and do something. And I was producing one video a week where I would review a bunch of shit. And that was because, you know, you're stuck inside for 4 or 5 months. You're going to watch a lot of TV. That's like, what else are you going to do? And that led to me discovering some new things and watching a bunch of old stuff. But one of the new things I discovered was a pilot that aired on Adult Swim by the name of Smiling Friends, a show that was developed by internet personalities, namely Psychic Pebble, Zach something, I forget his last name. But they developed their own adult animated series. And when I reviewed the pilot, I said, I hope Adult Swim picks this up, and I hope COVID doesn't kill this show, because I see some potential here. I think there's potential for a pretty good show. Now, whenever you see YouTubers or online personalities try to transition into some kind of success outside of YouTube or the internet, doesn't always yield great results. I think to the Angry Orange, which I didn't even think the Angry Orange was funny when it was on the internet. So the fact that they tried to turn that into a show outside of the internet just baffles me to this day. It was like, dude, it wasn't even that good online. Why? Why are we wasting money on this? Fred getting his own TV movies or whatever the hell that was. Lily Singh getting a talk show, which that was, I mean, I feel like the art of the late night talk show is dead, but that show was like, even by my very, very low expectations of late night talk shows, that one was really bad. And then you have some of them trying to make movies, like Smosh made a movie, and Linkara made a movie, and Angry Video Game Nerd made a movie. I'm in the movie. I've never seen the movie, and it's not because I heard the movie wasn't good. People have told me, even my friends is like, Patrick, you're in it, but you don't want to watch it. The movie's not very good. That's what I've been told. Again, I don't know. I haven't seen the film, but I never saw the movie because I did not want to see myself in the movie, because I'm the type of guy, once I film one of these videos and I post it on YouTube, I was like, I'm done with it. I'm tired of looking at it. It's done. I don't want to look at myself. I'm my own harshest critic in that regard. So I don't want to see myself in the film. And granted, I'm only in the film for like 10 seconds or whatever, but still, it's how I feel. So I've never actually seen the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, the movie that gave me an IMDb page. Just, fair enough. But normally when you venture outside of the internet or YouTube bubble, there's a difficulty in transitioning. But I think Smiling Friends succeeds because it's not somebody trying to take advantage of or trying to do what they were doing on the internet and then do it on a TV show. So there's not that, like, you're not losing something in the translation. These are some creative guys who have a presence on the internet, and they decided to take their creative talents and simply made it into their own unique TV show. And thankfully, season 1 of Smiling Friends dropped earlier this year, and I finally got a chance to watch it. Adult Swim dropped it all in one dump. It's 8 episodes, including the pilot, and so it's not a very long season. Each episode is like 10, 11 minutes long, so they're super short too, which is great. I blew through it so quickly, I should say. I'm a writer. But anyway, I thought the show overall, it lived up to the pilot, and it lived up to the potential that I saw in the pilot, and it's generally a pretty good show. There's a lot of insanity and nonsense in it, and if that's not your style, like, if you don't like Ren and Stimpy, for example, like the early seasons of Ren and Stimpy, you're probably not going to like something like this, where it is just like kind of like whatever, like crazy gags they can come up with, while also telling a story. Like, these episodes do have stories and character development within them, but a lot of the humor is very, very absurdist humor. And personally, I feel like we live in such a serious world these days. Seeing something like this really put a smile on my face. And that's the whole premise of the show, is that there's this organization called the Smiling Friends, and people who are sad call them up, and then they go and try to make them smile. With the main characters, Pim and Charlie. Pim is the more positive, happy-go-lucky one, and Charlie is the more sarcastic, kind of cynical one. But they work together to make their clients smile, and that's the whole show. And each episode has a new client, and each episode has increasingly wacky situations for them to get into. There's a Halloween episode, there's a Christmas episode. Christmas episode was the finale. There's an episode where they meet their evil counterparts, the Frowning Friends, which might have been my favorite episode of the season because it was just so silly. The whole show's silly, but that one was exceptionally silly. There's the pilot is a very good episode because it has Mike Stokloska from Red Letter Media. And that's another thing about the show. They get a lot of guests from the internet. James Rolfe, I mentioned him earlier. He had a brief cameo in the final episode. And so it does feel like it's like the internet kind of producing something for television, but I think it's unique enough to stand on its own. You don't have to know who all these internet personalities are to get the show, I don't think, or all these jokes that they make. They'll reference memes and other things about internet culture, but you don't need to understand what those things are to appreciate the story being told and appreciate the other jokes that are going on. It's a very layered, as far as comedy goes, it's very layered. Like, I've gone back and watched certain episodes, and there'll be things going on in the background and all these little background gags that I missed the first time around. So it's a very rewatchable show, kind of like a visual Edgar Wright style, because some of my favorite comedy films, or one of my major favorites, is Hot Fuzz. And that's a movie where it's like, I feel like every time I watch it, I'm catching some joke that I either didn't know about or I forgot about. And it's, and I kind of get that feeling from Smiling Friends as well, where it's like, there's so many background gags and so many so much attention to detail in the facial expressions and how the characters interact with each other that it's easy to miss certain things. But then when you catch it on the rewatch, it's like, wow, that makes it even funnier. It makes it even better. And I'm glad to see that the show's been pretty well received. Like, everybody I've talked to that have seen it has really enjoyed it. It seems to be catching some traction online. And I think it's a really good show. And you look at adult animation, Rick and Morty, I think, has gone downhill. Archer has gone way downhill. Nowhere near as good as it used to be. And then, the less said about The Simpsons and Family Guy, the better. You have South Park, which the problem with South Park, and I watched some episodes this new season, and they're good. They're good episodes. Of all the 90s adult cartoon shows that lasted, South Park is the only one that's even still watchable. The problem with South Park now, though, is that the world is so insane that life feels like a South Park episode, and it feels impossible to parody. Whereas South Park excelled in earlier seasons through heavy exaggeration. Things just keep getting so much crazier that it's almost like, I don't know if you can exaggerate anymore. We legitimately are this nuts. But hey, when you look at the state of adult animation, basically, it's like you have all these old shows that have kind of hung around for a really long time. You have even Bob's Burgers is in like its 11th or 12th season, and that's still a solid show, but it's been around a long time. And you have like the recent modern classics like Archer and Rick and Morty, and they've kind of had a downturn lately. So it's like we need some kind of fresh blood injected in there. And I think Smiling Friends is exactly what the doctor ordered. I think it's fun. I think it's really goofy, really funny, and generally just a fairly well-made absurdist cartoon. So if you're in the mood for something a little crazy, I highly recommend Smiling Friends. The whole show is up on HBO Max, so be sure to check it out. But that is all I have for you now. This, like I said, this is a really long video. I knew it was going to go long. But, I had fun making it, so there's that. But, yeah, a lot of things happening, a lot of moving parts going on with me and this channel and everything else in my personal and professional life. But it's also, I'm having fun, and that's the important thing. It's all all good things happening on this end. But thank you again, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate the support, and I will see you all later.